you're listening to some of these numbers, 10%, 20%, 25%, and you're trying to get your head around exactly what's happened, well, hopefully this might help. And when we tot all of that up, and you can see that they're stacking, by the way, so that these tariffs sit on top of each one. And then suddenly, when those reciprocal tariffs are applied, well, those bars shoot up, particularly painful, as you can see, for countries like China, which has been hit with a 34% reciprocal tariff, but that sits on top of all the other tariffs, meaning actually, accumulatively, the tariff on China is over 50%. And that is massive, really significant.
What?
And other countries as well. So Vietnam, a Southeast Asian exporting powerhouse, has been hit with that 46% reciprocal tariff, taking the total tariff closer to 60%.
Huh? How? Hold on, bro. How?
I'm smiling, but it ain't funny.
Hey, what's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Smart Money Habits. Today, we're going to take a look at the Trump tariffs and see how it could affect you and your family going forward. Now, I'm not going to hold you. Let's jump right into it.
I got you, homie.
Let's go.
But if you're listening to some of these numbers, 10%, 20%, 25%, and you're trying to get your head around exactly what's happened, well, hopefully this might help. So yesterday was Liberation Day. Donald Trump announced a raft of measures on the US's trading partners. These blue bars show where we were before, what the state of tariffs were for US's trading partners. You can see he's already imposed tariffs on Mexico, on Canada, as well as on China. Some of those were rolled over from Trump's first presidency. And then he implemented this 10% baseline tariff on all exports, on all imports coming into the US.
Hell no.
Irrespective of where they're coming from. And you can see that includes the UK. So the UK has been hit with that 10% baseline tariff. In fact, actually here, Canada and Mexico got some exemptions from that 10% tariff, but they've still been hit with that 25% tariff on a large chunk of their goods.
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
So that's the baseline tariff, but there was more. Donald Trump said he wanted to look into the US's trading relationship with individual countries and impose something he called a reciprocal tariff, effectively looking at the tariffs those countries impose, saying if you do it to us, we're going to do it to you, but also looking at other impediments to trade. So, for example, regulations that might block US exports.
Emotional, damn it.
And when we tot all of that up, and you can see that they're stacking, by the way, so that these tariffs sit on top of each one. And then suddenly, when those reciprocal tariffs are applied, well, those bars shoot up, particularly painful, as you can see, for countries like China, which has been hit with a 34% reciprocal tariff, but that sits on top of all the other tariffs, meaning actually, accumulatively, the tariff on China is over 50%. And that is massive, really significant. And other countries as well. So Vietnam, a Southeast Asian exporting powerhouse, has been hit with that 46% reciprocal tariff, taking the total tariff closer to 60%.
Me personally, I wouldn't take this level of disrespect.
The cost of most things is going to go up. There's no doubt about that.
Now, you might be looking at the UK over there thinking, well, it seems like we've got off pretty lightly. We've only been hit with the 10% baseline tariff. We haven't had any additional reciprocal tariffs added on. And Trump, when he was calculating all of this, as I said, he was saying that he was looking at tariffs that other countries impose onto US imports, but also looking at other non-tariff barriers. But actually, if we dig into how they figured all of this out, and bear in mind there was some head scratching among economists when these announcements were being made. How has he come up with these figures? And it looks like he's less interested in the tariffs that those countries impose and more interested in just the cold numbers of the deficit. So look at this. China, the US has a big deficit with China. It means China is sending more stuff to the US than it receives from the US, and EU as well. It's got a considerable deficit with the EU. And it looks like what he's done is, well, he's taken those countries' trade surpluses with the US. He's divided it by their total exports to the US, divided that number by 2, and come up with the reciprocal tariff. And let's see that in action. So this is the China example. You can see there, he's taken China's surplus with the US, divided it by their exports, divided that number by 2, and that's where that 34% number has come from, which begs the question, actually, if you look at the UK, Well, actually, it's one of the few countries where the US actually has a trade surplus with us. Kind of depends on how you measure that, but we're more or less in balance. So we're applying the US formula, well, then that would suggest that perhaps we've been disproportionately hit by being swept up in that 10% tariff. So how much of a win is that really? And what this is really showing us is that the Trump administration is going after countries that have big deficits, where the US has big trade deficits with them. So the big importers, the major products that US consumers like to purchase. And that undoubtedly will have an impact on inflation in the US. It's going to hurt economic growth. And that's something that the financial markets have been digesting.
No. No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No. 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 Hell no. 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 I refuse. No. No.
So let's have a look at how financial markets responded. Well, negatively. You can see here, FTSE 100 opened 1.5% down. US markets haven't yet opened, but this is the Nasdaq Futures Index, one of the major indices in the US. And you can see after that announcement, there was a bit of optimism. Perhaps he wouldn't go as far as they feared, but after that announcement, it was perhaps more aggressive than they were expecting, down 5.9%. And overnight, Asian markets, look at this, Japan, it's been hit with that 24% reciprocal tariff, the Nikkei down 3%. China hit with a 34% reciprocal tariff. You can see indices in Hong Kong and China down 1.6% and 0.5% respectively. And I think over the past month or so, what we've seen is a lot of tumult in the financial markets as investors readjust, recalibrate their expectations of how far they think Donald Trump will go. And now we wait for the reciprocal tariffs to see how countries respond. And we can only expect that volatility to continue.
Hey, thank you guys for watching the video. I really appreciate it. I hope you're having a wonderful day. And until next time, take care of yourself. And we out.